Right, yes guys, hope you are good, whatever time of the day you're watching this video. Thought I'd make a quick one, just sort of taking you through some mistakes that I wouldn't necessarily say that I've made most of these myself. It's more so what I see other people making, which is holding them back from the total amount of progress that they could be making in the gym in terms of their physique development, whether that is... I'll focus this primarily on building muscle as opposed to fat loss, but they are very interlinked in terms of like recovery and stuff, which I'll delve into later on in the video. But number one mistake, which I will say the vast majority of people make in the gyms, is that they just don't train hard enough. You don't really know if you're training hard enough until you are taken through a set by somebody who does train that hard. Somebody who already pushes their limits and genuinely trains to failure will be able to tell if you are training to failure or not based on the speed of your actual reps and how hard it actually looks like you are working, based on, are you pulling any faces, are you making any noise? I mean, some people obviously pull faces, make noises on purpose without actually training to failure. That is a thing, people do that. But you can usually tell if people are doing that or not. You can see if someone is on a leg press, their whole face has changed colour, they look as red as a tomato, they're like spitting after each rep by accident, they've got veins bulging out their neck from bracing that hard, and the rep speed has gone from moving fast to extremely slow to the point where they're like shaking. That's very evident that they're actually training to failure. If someone is just making a racket, shouting, talking mid-set, that's the thing. If someone's talking mid-set, they're not training to failure. If you were that locked in to your set, you should not be even, you wouldn't be able to think of a conversation to have. Or even if you're just uttering motivational speeches to yourself, like I've seen it all. If you were genuinely training to failure, you would not be able to string words together. Things would not come out. The only thing that comes out is like grunts and whatever, like noises just come out basically. So yeah, I'll put up some training clips of myself of like the last reps of my sets versus the first reps, so you can actually truly see what the difference should look like from the start of a set to the end of a set. And of course, if you're training in a lower rep range, that rep speed from the first rep to the last rep is still going to be quite different, but it's not going to be anywhere near as different as if you're doing a high rep set of, let's say, 12 plus reps. So yeah, that's definitely the first mistake that I see people making. And that is something that you can get better at. That is a skill. It does take longer to fix than something as, let's say, drinking more water, for example, being more hydrated. It is more of a skill, but it does come with time. And the more you do something, the better you get at it. So it is something that you can work on. But I think the fastest way to get better at training hard would be to try and train with somebody who already trains hard, who is happy to, let's say, help push you to your limits. Like if you were going to end a set after rep 8, but you had 11 reps, and it's pretty evident of that, they will make you do the 11 reps and they will show you how that should feel. That will be very beneficial for you. So if you do get the opportunity for that, take it 100%. The second mistake that I think most people make is, especially if you're, let's say, more of a hard gainer, or if you started off more skinny like myself, for example. I'm not saying I'm huge now, I'm still on the skinnier side in terms of the whole bodybuilding game and stuff, but I have put on a decent amount of muscle. My stage weight last year was 68 kilos. When I started the gym, I was like 52 kilos. So that's already, 30 something pounds of lean tissue. I mean, when I started the gym as well, I was in worse condition than I was on stage, of course. So realistically, it's closer to like 40 to 45 pounds of lean tissue over coming up to 6 years now. I've been in the gym nearly 6 years. Started training when I was midway through being 15. I'm now 20, turning 21 in 2 months. It's flew by that 6 years, tell you that. So yeah, second mistake I would say is just the fact that most people just aren't eating enough. I know when I started, I definitely did not eat enough for the first year, I'd say, of training. I definitely undershot the amount of food that I needed to eat. I was probably eating, let's say, 2,700 or so, but I was burning most of that off because I was still very active. I was still playing football. I was riding my bike everywhere. Obviously, I didn't have a car at 15. And then what I did when I was 16 is I took it to the other extreme, started eating way too much for my needs at that moment, and just put on unnecessary excess body fat. Which, I mean, I was in a big surplus, so I did put on a lot of muscle in that time, but I definitely could have stayed leaner, and I almost guarantee that I would have put on the same amount of muscle for sure. So what I would recommend is that you aim to gain roughly around about 0.5% of your body weight. So each week, that is. So let's say, for example, you weigh 65 kilos. 1% of 65 kilos is 0.65 kilograms. So if you half that, that's 0.325 kilograms roughly. And this is all like a weekly average because your weight will fluctuate on a daily basis. So what I would say is take your weight every morning fasted after you've been to the toilet, and then after 7 days, add all those numbers up together, divide it by 7. That is your weekly average weight. Do that for, let's say, 3 weeks or so and see what is happening with your weight, maybe even 2 weeks. If you're noticing that your weight is maintaining, or if it's dropping, especially if it's dropping, you need to increase your total daily calorie intake. So if you're not already tracking your calories and your macros, just download MyFitnessPal, free on the App Store, or Chronometer, whichever one you prefer, and get started. Just start by scanning food labels on stuff. Start by weighing bits of food out here and there. Obviously, if you are literally brand new to the gym, just learn how to cook, basically. Especially if you're younger, like if you're like under 18, learn how to cook is probably one of the best skills like for adulthood. Personally, I think you can have. You know exactly what's going into your body. It's way cheaper than eating out all the time. It's way better for you. And you can also make your food taste nice. Like I know for me personally, I'm a very picky eater. Like there's certain things that I just don't like to eat. And when I was a kid and I couldn't make my own meals and stuff, I didn't know how to make food that I liked that was also healthy or let's say congruent with my goals. I just wouldn't eat much at all. And as a result, I was a very skinny kid. Whereas some people on the other side, they just are also picky eaters, so then they just eat loads of shit because that's all they like. And that, as a result, makes them gain unnecessary excess body fat. So what I would say is just learn how to cook and make food that fits your goals, taste nice. Because you can't have like sauces and stuff, like that's not going to kill your progress in any way. Well, sorry, too much sauces can, too much untracked sauces can. If you're aware of what you're putting in and you factor that into your macro count and calorie count, that's fine, it's okay. It's not going to slow down your progress in that sense, if it's tracked. So, bit of a tangent there, but yeah, you might need to start eating more. I know, for example, myself, this last little bulk that I've done since last stepping on stage, I think I started that bulk at eating around about, let's say 4,000 calories, maybe just a little bit below, I think, maybe 3,800. And then I finished this bulk eating 5,600 calories at just shy of 81 kilos. So 13 kilos up, a total of, let's say 1,800 calories more to my day. Well, to my training days, this is. My rest day calories are different, but I'm just going on training days just to keep it simple for here. So yeah, those are a rough idea of numbers that in the future, maybe not right now, but in the future, you might need to start eating those. But this is all extremely person dependent. Don't just copy that amount of calories because I did it. Because I'm a bit of an anomaly. Like for my height and weight, most people would not need to eat anywhere near as much as I do in order to gain weight. But everybody's different. And if you need to eat that much, then you've got to eat that much. It is what it is. There's no point moaning about it or anything. Just find foods that you like, foods that are congruent with your goals. Set up a meal plan. If you need someone to do that for you, pay them, get it done. And just lock in, get it done for years. Because that is how long building muscle, like a lot of muscle, takes. It takes years. It's not going to happen in a matter of weeks. It's not even going to happen in a matter of months. Like considerable amounts of muscle mass takes years to build. So you need to find something that you can stick to for years that you enjoy. Because otherwise, you're actually going to hate life and you will fall off. Because nobody wants to spend their whole life being miserable doing something that they don't like. So yeah, make food taste nice. Reason number 3 why you might not be gaining muscle as fast as you want, or if you're not gaining any muscle at all, you're not noticing any visible progress over months, let's say, for example, is your actual training execution and the way that you do the movements might just be shit. I know I've been guilty of certain habits in the past. In the past, I used to half rep a lot of my chest presses. I used to, let's say, bring the bar down, leave a couple inches gap off my chest just so I could lift more weight. It wasn't necessarily an ego thing. I mean, it kind of was to an extent. I wanted to keep chasing numbers, and I was chasing progressive overload, which is very important, but not at the expense of your form. If your form is slipping while chasing progressive overload, you're not actually placing more tension on the muscle. You're actually taking some of it away and just placing it on like joints, and you're just not getting the most bang for your buck in simple terms. So what I would say is train with a full range of motion. So let's say, for example, you're on a chest press. Let's say it is a Smith machine chest press. Bring the bar down to as close as your chest as you can get it without your shoulder starting to tweak out, basically, without your shoulder just moving all over the place. If that's an inch away, that's okay. But you want to train with your full active range of motion, which is basically just, in simple terms, that's how far you can bring it down comfortably without other muscles just sort of taking away. Like say, for example, you're doing a pec deck or a pec fly. If to get more range, you're shrugging up like this and moving all over the place, that's not your active range of motion. You're now moving into passive range of motion, and that's where tension's actually being taken off the desired muscle. So that's not what you want. But say, for example, you're doing a leg press. If you're just quarter repping, like I have done in the past with a lot more weight than I do now, that's also leaving gains on the table, because when you train a muscle through its full range of motion, you're increasing the amount of muscle fibers and motor units that you can actually recruit within that muscle during that set. So again, in simple terms, more bang for your buck. You could essentially do less sets, but because they're a higher quality, especially if you're training at full intensity, train to failure as well, you'll be recruiting as many muscle fibers and motor units as you can. So you could theoretically do less sets, spend less time in the gym, but because it's higher quality work that you're doing, you'll still make probably more progress than if you were lacking intensity and also lacking the execution, so the range of motion. Also, if you're not controlling your sets, if you're not controlling the change of direction of the movement, say for example you're doing a chest press, if you're just bouncing it off your chest using momentum, that's also taking away from the amount of mechanical tension, which basically just means the stimulus for muscle growth that you're actually placing on that target muscle. So definitely control the sets. This is also going to mean that you've got less likelihood of getting injured, because if you are injured, you cannot push that muscle to its true failure capacity, which means you're therefore not going to recruit as much muscle fibers on motor units, all that jazz. So you're definitely leaving gains on the table if you're injured. So we want to do everything we can to prevent that from happening. You don't want to get injured at all. Reason number 4 as to why you might not be gaining as much muscle as you want is you're not recovering in between your sessions. So a few reasons for this. Most likely one is probably poor nutrition habits, so you're not getting enough protein intake. I would say aim for, at a minimum, like 1.25 grams per pound of body weight. So let's say, for example, me personally, I weigh now 79 kilos. It's kind of, the last few days it's been fluctuating between 78.5 and like 79.3 something. So we'll call it 79. If we times that by 2.2, I'll have to try and do the maths in my head now. I think that puts me on 160, 170. I think it's around about 180 something grams of protein or something, which is what I want to be shooting for. Now, that would be a target for somebody of my height and my weight, for example. However, due to me being somebody who just churns through food, like my body just blitzes through it, if I was to eat 180 grams of protein or so, I probably just wouldn't recover. My body just burns through food that fast. Like I said, I am a bit of an anomaly in that sense. Most people my height and weight don't need to eat as much food as I do. So I personally shoot for, at the moment, I'm shooting for closer to like 250 grams on my training days and about 275 grams on my rest days. I think it is, might be close to 280, 285. But if you want to shoot for more protein, as long as you're not getting any digestive issues or any sort of bloating, if you're not feeling gassy or any sort of acid reflux, you're pretty much fine. It's not like a macronutrient that if you overshoot on, unless obviously you're exceeding your calorie goal, that's then obviously pull the protein back or just pull the excess calories back. Essentially, you don't want to be going over that at all. It's pretty much okay to have more protein than that, let's say 1.25 grams per pound of body weight, because that is kind of like a minimum threshold for gaining muscle. You could eat more if you want. Another reason as to why you might not be gaining as much muscle as you want is sleep. If you want to be aiming for around about 8 hours of sleep a night. However, I know people have lives, people have jobs, people have kids, so 8 hours isn't always possible. Me personally, working full time and stuff, I usually aim for around about 7 hours. If I can get more sleep, I go for it and I get as much sleep as I can. However, with routine, with work, getting to places and stuff, it's not always possible. Sometimes I just cannot get 8 consecutive straight hours of sleep. I never usually go below 6 hours 45. Rarely I might get like 6 hours 15. That's like a very, 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 very busy day for me. But if you're getting sub 6 hours of sleep, you're going to notice, maybe not straight away, your training will be worse, but over time, you're going to notice that your recovery will be worse. Also, cognitive ability will slow down dramatically the less sleep you get. So your actual perception of effort during a set is probably going to be skewed. So you might think something is harder than it is, which means that you might actually leave reps in the tank without realising. But if it's one night, you'll probably be okay. But if that one night slips into, on average, 2 nights a week, you're getting sub 5 hours sleep, that's going to slow you down quite considerably compared to if you were getting consistently 8+ hours of sleep a night. You've got to think, babies, for example, sleep 12, 14 hours a day, more sometimes. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't actually fully know, but I imagine the babies sleep a lot. And babies also grow a lot. I know that's very bro sciencey and stuff, but you've got to think sleep is literally where everything gets repaired. It's where you recover, both mentally, physically. It's where almost all your recovery takes place. So definitely don't neglect it. If you can get more sleep, get more sleep. But I do know people have lives. So this is something that you definitely want to focus on, or you need to be mindful of. Like, if you are noticing that your recovery is a little bit worse, that is one reason why it might be, because your sleep is not in an optimal position. But some things you can do with your sleep to actually improve the quality of it, as opposed to just the quantity. Let's say you don't have the time to get more sleep. You can have a warmer shower before you go to bed, just because if you feel cleaner, you'll probably find, I know for me personally, I find that I can fall asleep easier if I feel clean as a whole. Also, if you notice that a lot of light comes into your room in the morning, get an eye mask, so that'll block it out. And if you're someone who's on screens a lot before you go to bed, blue light blocking glasses can be really good. Or even just dimming like the brightness down on, let's say, your laptop or your phone, whatever it is. You just don't want very bright screens like in your face as you go to bed. Also, if you're watching like horror movies before you go to bed and you're up all night scared, that's probably not going to be very, very beneficial to your sleep quality. There's definitely a few other things, like trying to keep a cold room so you don't wake up like sweating and stuff or struggle to fall asleep because of heat. There's many other factors. I'll probably do a separate video on something like that. But yeah, be mindful of your sleep. That can definitely impact your recovery a lot. And another thing is alcohol consumption. Alcohol slows down the rate that muscle protein synthesis occurs. The more frequently you can spike muscle protein synthesis, the faster you can recover, basically. Now, if that gets stunted by alcohol consumption in excessive amounts, you're just slowing down your recovery. And alcohol also contains a lot of calories, which, if you weren't aware, it does. I think a shot of vodka has like somewhere between 50 and 100 calories. So, and that's a low calorie one. If you're getting, pints, they're going to add up very quickly. And the calories from things like alcohol is going to be very low nutritional value. So it's not going to benefit your training performance in any way or just help you recover like protein or carbs would. It's just going to slow you down. So be mindful of that. Another reason as to why you might not be making as much progress as you want to make is you are unfit. Now, this is a mistake that I've definitely made personally myself in the past. Like I said, when I did that, I guess, dirty bulk, I wouldn't necessarily say that it was a dirty bulk because I made up the calories primarily through clean foods. I just definitely had too high of a surplus of calories. But during that time, I had it in my head that the more that I moved outside of the gym, the more demand that would place on my muscles to recover, and the worse my recovery would be. However, it's not really true at all. In fact, the more fit you are, the more effective your body is at transporting nutrients around your bloodstream. Well, it transports nutrients via your bloodstream to the muscles so they can recover faster. You're also going to train significantly better. If you're, for example, gassing out after walking up a flight of stairs, like I have been in the past, how well do you think you're going to be able to train legs? Like, take a set of leg press, 14 plus reps to failure. That's going to be extremely physically demanding on your cardiovascular system. So you're probably going to gas out via your lungs before your quads actually gas out. And obviously that means less stimulus being placed onto your quads for muscle growth. So they're not going to grow as fast. So even if it is tiring you out a little bit, like ideally you want to separate your cardio from your training session as much as you can, or at least do it afterwards. Definitely don't do it beforehand. Even if it tires you out a bit, your body will adapt and get better at training as a result. So you might feel more tired maybe in the first couple of weeks doing it or so, but your training will get better as the weeks go on. So definitely keep cardio in place, stay fit. In terms of, you don't need to do it excessively, like you don't need to run marathons or anything. That will take away from your training performance if doing too much of it. But if you do, let's say, 5 sets of 20 minutes steady state cardio in that zone 2 range, so for me personally that would place my heart rate between about 125 to 145 beats per minute roughly. If you keep your heart rate within that range for the whole 20 minutes, you're getting the benefits that you want out of it, even just for your heart health as well. Like, you've got to think, muscles are great and all, it's great having muscle, but the most important muscle is your heart, because that's the one that keeps you alive. If you're not working that sufficiently, you're only shortening your lifespan, most likely, which is not what you want. Everyone wants to live longer, I hope. If not, then that's a tough scenario to be in, I imagine. I'd also keep a good step count alongside that. So on top of that cardio, I'd probably be doing at least 8 to 10k steps per day. You can break that down into little different walks throughout the day. Probably wouldn't do it all in one chunk unless you like short on time, or you have you're on a long drive, for example, and you don't really have a choice. 10 minutes of walking for me is about 1,000 steps. So if you break that up, you could do 20 minutes walks 3 times a day. Before you know it, you're nearly boxed off your step count. And then you walk around in the gym a little bit, machine to machine. You walk around at work here and there. You walk around your house doing little jobs. Before you know it, you've ticked off step count. And walking's good. It can help clear your head. It's good for your digestion. It helps you digest food. I used to think that walking more would burn more calories, which it does. I used to think that that would mean that I have to eat loads more, which you do. But due to the benefits to your digestion and your appetite from walking more, it's going to actually be easier for you to get in more food. So that's definitely something that's helped me out this last bulking phase I've done. Last reason as to why you might not be gaining as much muscle as you want is you are dehydrated. You're not drinking enough water. Now, this is probably one of the most common mistakes that I see, and it's something that I wouldn't say I've ever struggled with, to be honest. I've always drank a lot of water, even since I was pretty young, 12, 13 or so. I've always just been pretty thirsty of a person, so I definitely always drink a lot. I think when I started out, I was probably drinking 4 to 5 litres of water a day, just out of habit, to be honest. And over time, I've gradually escalated that, so now I'm drinking 9 to 10 litres a day, easily. And yeah, you do pee a lot. You probably need to go to the toilet every hour-ish. And that can be slightly inconvenient at times, but you get used to it. But the reason why you want to be drinking more water is because the carbohydrates that you eat cannot be uptaken as effectively, aka the glucose broken down and converted to glycogen in the muscles as fuel. That process doesn't happen as effectively unless there's sufficient water alongside that carbohydrate intake, which basically means that if you don't drink enough water, you're not going to have as much energy when you're training, so your training is going to be worse. And if your training is worse, you're not building as much muscle as you want. Bottom line. Also, in terms of your cognitive ability, if you are dehydrated, your perception of effort also increases. So, similar to what I mentioned before, you might think that you're training as hard as you can, and that's due to you feeling smashed because you're dehydrated. You might actually have more reps in the tank without you realising. And then there's so many other benefits to drinking more water in terms of your skin health, your organ health. It's just very beneficial. It also helps with things like your nails. It's probably the best health tip that I could give to someone. Aside from just exercising in general, just drink more water. You're almost guaranteed to see your health as a whole improve. It also brings down your blood pressure, which is very important for people who are obese, overweight, or dealing with high blood pressure issues. So yeah, those are going to be the most common mistakes that I see people making, and which is holding them back from making as much progress in the gym as they could, from building as much muscle as they could do. So I hope you've learned something from this video. Share it with a friend if you found it helpful. I'll catch you in the next one. Adios.